Seven funny snakes that fought the big fat bunny.
In just a moment, you'll know what I just said. And by the end of this video, you won't be able to unhear it. And you'll know why that is. I'm about to do something, and I don't know why more linguists don't do this. I'm going to use a simple foodstuff and a children's game that became a meme challenge to teach the hardest concept in phonology with the softest food. Most people get the idea that letters correspond to sounds and sounds make up words. And it's not a big jump from there to the idea of phonemes, meaningful sounds in a language. But if words are molecules, phonemes are like atoms. Yes, they make up the words, but they have their own structure too. And what's super cool to me is that we can start swapping out electrons to strain this metaphor. I'll show you. Let's take the sentence, 7 fuzzy snakes bit Pat the big fat bunny. I'm going to say it, but keep adding marshmallows to my mouth. And how I say it will have to change. 7 fuzzy snakes bit Pat the big fat bunny.
7 fuzzy snakes bit Pat the big fat bunny. 7 fuzzy snakes bit Pat the big fat bunny. Why did I buy 2 bags? 7 funny snakes bit Pat the big fat bunny. What am I doing? 7 funny snakes bit Pat the big fat bunny. 7 funny snakes bit Pat the big fat bunny.
That's so much. Oh. Why did I buy 2 bags? So what's going on here? Why can I say "fevum" and you can parse it as 7 from context? Well, today we're talking about the subatomic structures of sounds in language, distinctive features. If you're new to the channel, I'm Dr. Taylor Jones. I've got a PhD in linguistics from the University of Pennsylvania, and on the channel I discuss everything related to language, linguistics, language learning, and culture. If you're into those topics, be sure to subscribe and to ring the bell for notifications.
This is Linguistics Jones.
Now, before we see how these marshmallows tell us something deeper about phonemes, I want to thank today's sponsor, Babbel. As a linguist, I'm obviously obsessed with how we communicate. Babbel is one of the top language learning apps in the world, and it's one that I use to actually put these theories into practice. Since we're talking about phonetics, I've been practicing my Italian. Babbel's lessons are designed by over 650 experts, so you're learning real-world conversation, not just random words. For example, I'm thinking about attending the Polyglot Conference this year in Bologna. Instead of just ciao, I'm learning useful stuff for my fall travels, like no, grazie, ne ho abbastanza, and per favore, ti supplico, basta. April is the perfect time for a fresh start with a new habit. You can get up to 55% off your subscription by clicking the link in my description. They even have a 14-day money-back guarantee. Use the link below and let me know in the comments what language you're interested in learning and why. Now back to the marshmallows and what we can learn about the human faculty of language from stuffing our mouths. In my IPA videos, I talk about the fact that we can characterize a sound using 3 parameters. I'm told that's a really dorky and annoying way of explaining, so let me instead use a metaphor. You know a video game character selection screen where you get to choose your own appearance? This is like if you got to choose your hat, your shirt, and your pants. Let's say you're playing as a consonant. That's an obstruction of airflow in the mouth. We'll say the pants are one variable, place. You get to choose lips, teeth, roof of mouth, a little further back, the dangly bit at the back of your mouth, and the throat. These are not what linguists call them. For shirt, you've got manner, how you make the sound. Full obstruction of airflow, followed by release. Near obstruction, so the air gets turbulent. Lateral flow over the tongue, air through the nose, and so on. And for your hat, there's only 2 choices, hat or no hat. That's whether or not your vocal folds are vibrating. Some of you are thinking, what is this, a video game from the 80s? And you're actually onto something there. Contemporary phonological theory is a lot like contemporary video games in that there are a lot more options in your character select screen. But I want to ease our way into this more complicated theory. For vowels, you can do the same basic idea, but with the relative height of your tongue in your mouth, backness of your tongue in your mouth, and rounding of your lips. Every sound is its own character combination, but you only have so many to choose from. So to make B, you select voice on, place, lips, and airflow is stop. And change one toggle and you've got a different character. Voice off is now ba. So what's this got to do with marshmallows? Well, think about these features as a light switch, on or off. But I've just crammed a bunch of marshmallows into the switch mechanism. I've effectively taped the switch in place. So when I switch to saying fevum, I'm keeping everything the same as in the real word. Voicing, frication, nasalization, but the coronal switch, the switch that says use the tip of the tongue for S and N, S and N, is jammed. The incredible thing to me is that we just naturally work around the problem. So I go f instead of s. And given the context, we tend to be shockingly good at then understanding that while fevum was said, seven was intended. So you've got the concept. Sounds are like an atom or a character select screen. And you've got the mechanism. It's a light switch that can be off or on. Now it's time for the organization. But first, if you like this approach to linguistics, you might be interested in signing up for the digital self-paced course I'm offering later this year, the Language Blueprint. It's a complete introduction to linguistics covering all the major subfields, but instead of a tired grad student who doesn't want to be there explaining from hand-me-down slides, you get me. Instead of homework, you get not homework. Should beats doing homework.
And besides, it beats doing homework.
If you'd like to know more or sign up for the waitlist and for updates, head to languagejones.com/blueprint. Okay, so what's the organization? Well, linguists use a feature chart. Those of you who've had any linear algebra at all are going to recognize this. It is a matrix. Now, there are two advanced layers to this that I think are amazing. If we're using the atom metaphor, the first one gets us into the world of quarks and gluons. Instead of three main features, place, manner, voice, proton, neutron, electron, we now have a lot more. This is in part based on observation of which kinds of sounds pattern with each other across the world's languages. And it's partially based on anatomy. So there's features like distributed or advanced tongue root or sibilant, large amounts of energy at high frequencies, or spread glottis, which will capture the distinction between pa, a pa, and pa, a pa. And even more interesting is that these get used in what's called feature geometry to explain some very interesting patterns in language, like vowel harmony. If you're unfamiliar with vowel harmony, that's when a word in a language, like say Turkish, requires all the vowels in the same word to agree in terms of some specification, like height. Kind of like the stuck switch metaphor. But how do the vowels see each other with all the consonants in the way? Linguists use a metaphor of a mobile to discuss feature geometry, but I prefer a different approach. Think about the vowels as birds on a telephone wire above a sidewalk. That's the vocalic tier. If you're looking from above everything, it can be easy to say that moving left to right, there's 5 or 10 or 20 creatures, birds, people, dogs, whatever. But the birds on the wire don't care how many people are below on the sidewalk. They're still next to each other in their little world of sitting on a wire. And this approach is surprisingly powerful for explaining all sorts of phenomena, vowel harmony, tone, across all sorts of domains, language acquisition, historical change, and so on. So today we talked about distinctive feature theory and what a phoneme is built from. We talked about how it's useful to scientists to think in terms of binary features, light switches that can be off or on, and organize them into a matrix. And then we saw that some categories of sounds might be better described as being, in some abstract sense, on different planes. And we had a snack. If you like what I'm doing with the channel, you can support it on YouTube with super thanks or over on Patreon at patreon.com/languagejones. Please leave me a comment. They are great for the algorithm. And subscribe if you haven't already. For more on that intro to linguistics, head over to languagejones.com/blueprint. Until next time, happy learning.